Ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Hi, it's Joanna Oakey here, and welcome back to the Deal Room Podcast, a podcast brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. Now, today we look closely at pricing issues in selling a business. I'm sure all business brokers and advisors dealing with sales are familiar with this scenario where they find themselves disagreeing with their clients on how much the business is worth. So I'm pretty sure today's discussion is quite a hot topic for all of our business brokers and advisors out there, and certainly it's an interesting one for any business owner who's looking at selling their business into the future. And of course, joining me for this discussion is Zoran, the founder and principal at Xcllusive Business Sales. Now, Zoran, like most brokers, started at the other side of a fence as a business owner who wanted to sell his business, who hired a broker to help him with the sale, and then realised he could do a better job selling his business himself. So I'm super excited to share this fabulous conversation with Zoran. So keep listening and we'll jump right into it.
ladies and gentlemen,
Good evening.
Are you ready?
Okay, here we go.
You're listening to the Deal Room Podcast. Join us as we bring you the inside scoop on business sales and acquisitions. Get across trends in the area and hear the industry's best recount their real-life tips, traps, and experiences. Now, here's your host, Joanna Oakey.
Zoran, thank you so much for coming along to the Deal Room Podcast today.
You're welcome, Joanne.
Okay, now today we're going to kick it off by talking about problems with pricing. I think this is quite a hot topic. I know lots of brokers I talk to lament the fact that sellers who are coming in generally have unrealistic views of what their business is worth. But I thought it'd be useful today if we dig into why pricing can be a real problem and why it can be a problem, I guess, to follow a client's lead where they are sure that their business is worth way more than what you as a broker believe the market is likely to value it at. So and maybe we'll dig into that topic today. But first, before we do that, I just thought I'd like to, in order to give us a bit of context, maybe talk a little bit about how you started Xcllusive and why you started Xcllusive and your business sale event in the background that sort of kicked off your broking firm.
Okay, well, just about every broker that I met in my life actually started a career the same way, where they have a business, they try to sell it, they're not happy with what they discovered or experienced in the market, and they said, oh, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it better. And then they go out there and experience the market. It's true, isn't it?
You're absolutely right. Do you know what? You took the words right out of my mouth, Zoran. I was actually going to say that. I was going to say it's incredible how often I hear this story that a business owner has sold their business and just realised that they could do it much better. So they set up a broking business. And tell us why. What were the issues?
When I started my business, I thought it was a really original story. And then as I met other people, I found out it's not an original story at all, that everybody's done it that way.
Yeah.
What very quickly brokers discover when they go out there, the charging model that the brokers have, it's actually not justifiable. And few of the guys that you had on the shows before talked about the charging model. And problem is, because it's coming from the real estate industry and it's governed by the real estate industry legislation, a lot of brokers actually go out there and start charging these commissions. And it sounds really good. Some charge 8, 10%, whatever you charge. And you think, wow, I'm going to make a lot of money. And they start thinking about it like a real estate. So then they go on real estate training. They get the real estate training. And real estate, it's all about listing, getting the listings on the board. But business broking, it's actually about the selling. And there are two distinct pipelines. One is working towards getting people on the market or getting businesses on the market, and there could be anything between 4 weeks up to 2 years or 3 years before you'll talk to potential clients before you get them on the market. And then you have to sell that business. And then again, it can be anything between 6 months to about 3 years. And spoken to somebody who'd done business broking for about 3 years. An interesting thing that he said to me, he said, look, the last business that I sold was the first one I actually listed. So what happens out there when the broker goes out there and experiences this problem? Well, you got to pay the bills, all right? So it's a business, you got to pay the bills. They start charging these upfront fees, all right? And that actually gets them through and pays a bit of cash flow before the commissions start coming in. So creates this moral hazard that the business broker, when he sits in front of the client, that he knows that the business is worth $1 million, who wants $2 million, he said, okay, let's have a go. All right, fully knowing that he can't achieve that. But the pressure of the market and the pressure of economics and reality pushes him towards that.
I think it's also the pressure of, it's the pressure of your clients as well, right? Because these business owners come in, and I've seen it lots of times, you know, they have real certainty that their business must be worth this amount of money. And quite often that amount of money is based on, you know, the amount of money they feel they need to take out of it, not a reflection of value in the marketplace.
Yeah, there's a few reasons for it. One is that they price their business on what business, and they say that business owns me so much. So, for example, I'll invest, 3 years of my life and $300,000 and $400,000, and now business is not really worth that, but I feel it's worth that because I want somebody else to pay for my mistakes. It doesn't happen in real life, all right? Another issue why they got this unrealistic expectation, because very often first point of contact is the accountant. So they're going to go and see their accountant. An accountant's going to sit in front of them. He's going to look at the figures, and he's afraid to underprice. So what they do, they actually overprice the businesses. They use some very funny methods, but very often they look at everything that they take out of the business. They put it times it by 3 because it sounds like a good number, and then they add the asset, and then they add the stock on top of it. And very often it goes more than double what the real value is. So when the broker sits in front of the client and gives them realistic evaluation of their business and a realistic market value, they have on one side the accountant advising them double the value, and that's somebody they've been dealing and trusted for 20 years, and they've got somebody they just met who's telling them $1.5 million. And that's another problem why people go on the market for way more than what the business is priced. But here's the problem, all right? This is what happens. Yeah, and that happens not just in business sales, but if you're selling anything for that matter, all right? Let's say you're buying a house, all right? And let's say you want to buy the house and you've been on the market for 6 months. It takes you about 6 months to figure out where the prices are on the market, all right? And when the good house comes on the market, priced exactly, you're going to go and you're going to be the first person that goes there because you already missed out on 2 or 3 deals, and you're going to go with your best foot forward. If the same house goes up 30% more than what the market value is, you wouldn't even approach, you won't even put the offer because there is not that urgency. When you see something that's well priced, you want to be the first one because you don't want to miss out, all right? Now, if you overprice that house, it stays on the market after 3 months, and especially now in this market that's going backwards, it's going to sit on the market for 2 weeks, and then 4 weeks, and then 6 weeks, and then 3 months. And the first thing when you see something like that, first thing that the buyer thinks is, what's wrong with it? So they don't even give it a time of the day to actually go and visit it.
I think we can all relate to that, certainly. And the property analogy is a really good one because it's something everyone can relate to. The houses that don't sell quickly sell very, very, very slowly, right?
And they sell below the market value because after a while, you've got no other tools to entice the buyers to look at it than to actually make it a bargain. Now, I really believe that 80% of the businesses out there are sold exactly that way, all right? So if you want to do one thing right when you're selling a business, price it right. So get a certified valuation. It doesn't have to be certified, but get a really, really good valuation. If any broker or any accountant tells you a value that kind of seems to be too good to be true, probably it's not true. So the best way to go about it, ask them for comparable sales. So tell me 3 or 4 businesses that you sold, they're similar to mine, that you sold for this multiplier or for this value, or whatever method you're using. And if they don't show you that, that's because they don't know, all right? They're pulling their numbers out of the air or trying to entice you to go with them, run. So most important thing is to price this business right. Like when we're selling a business, we do quite comprehensive valuations on every business, and we don't take them on the market unless they want to go on our value. And that's not because we don't want to waste the time selling them, or we don't want to work without getting paid, but that's because it's the right thing for the person across the table from us. It's the right thing for the person that's selling the business. And we know that once when you go to your database, once when you go to your hottest buyers and you give them a call and you offer them something that's too expensive, they're just going to say no. So if I offer you something for 1.5 that you think it's worth $1 million, you're going to say no, the price is too, gap between value and the offer is too big. I don't want to offend anybody that I don't think they're serious about selling. If 6 months later I come to you and with the same business and said, look, we're going to expect $1 million from you. First thing you're going to say, well, you're obviously talking to me because you've got no one else to talk to. So it's not $1 million now it's 800.
So can you tell us, I'm really interested to hear some examples of where you've seen this played out with very poor consequences.
Look, it happens all the time. It even happens when you price the business right. So I can give you a couple of examples. We're going to change the name and places to protect guilty and innocent, but mainly guilty parties. So this is what happens. There was a tourist attraction type of business that we were selling in Victoria, and we took it to the market for 1.2, and it was exactly 1.2 value. And literally, next day we had an offer. Well, not an offer, but we had a buyer who said, "I'll pay the asking price." So the first reaction from the seller was, "Look, we underpriced this business." All right. Why would somebody buy it in 24 hours? Something that I was expecting is going to stay on the market for 6 months. So what happened? They said, look, they didn't accept that, and they actually increased the price to, against all our advices, they increased the price to 1.8 million. Needless to say, the first buyer walked away. And then 12 months later, we end up selling a same business for $900,000. Now, $1.8 million detracted people from it, and it took all this time for the seller to actually realize that the original offer, and very often the first offer is always the best, was the offer, but we had no ammunition anymore. And the only way to attract people to the market, to a business that was on the market for such a long period of time, is to actually make it a bargain and actually reduce the value. Now, this happens way too often, and any broker that you can talk to, he'll tell you exactly the same. Like every broker and anybody who's dealing with the people, accountant, lawyers, really owes to their clients to really advise them properly on that price, because it's counterintuitive and it's really, really dangerous to overprice the business. It costs them a lot of money. In this particular case, what was that? About $300,000 loss. Having said that, they kept the business for a longer period of time, so they got the profits out of it, so they can justify that to themselves. But in reality, they lost $300,000.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's it's really sage advice there, and it's great. I really enjoy hearing these examples because it really helps to, I guess, give character to the point. Because we, as I said when we kicked off, it's the issue that I hear business brokers talk about, so often, that the issue of the seller having a particular view of the value of their business, or in the case, I guess, of the business that you were talking about here, initially the sellers had accepted that they would go out at 1.2, but then suddenly, they felt like they could get more, so they raised that bar. And at the end of the day, look, the problem is the emotion is connected to people who've built businesses generally for a substantial period of time, put in a substantial amount of effort, and they feel like they need to maximize the outcome of that effort. But at the end of the day, you're also playing with the psychology of the buyers. I guess that's it. That's the real critical element.
What you're going to be aware of also, that the market or the buyers, like number of the buyers for any business, is finite. And it's much smaller than the real estate market. So everybody who lives needs a house to live in. Not everybody who walks the streets wants a business. And not everybody who wants a business wants your type of business. And not everybody that wants a business, your type of business, wants a business where you are located, your size. So the market is much, much smaller. And, I dare to say, I don't know the numbers, but I've got a feeling that for any business, there's probably about 50 people, and that's Australia-wide, that could be interested in your business to look at, not to buy it. And out of those 50, it's going to filter down to a very, very small amount of people that will actually make a move for your business. You have to keep that in mind. So you can't afford to miss any offers, and you can't afford to stay too long on the market, because urgency factor goes away from the seller, from the buyer. So they're really not worried that business is going to disappear from the market if it's been on the market for 12 months. But if the business just comes on the market, and I believe, 3 to 6 weeks, first 3 to 6 weeks, that's the time that you actually do the deal, because the seller doesn't want to miss out. If he misses out for one reason or the other, because we couldn't agree on the price or we couldn't agree on the terms, if he go back to that same guy or girl 6 months down the track, the power of the bargaining power is now in their hands, not in the hands of the seller.
Yeah. So let's talk about strategy then. Let's say, business has gone to market, maybe A, the buyers aren't there, or B, the pricing strategy has been incorrect. You don't get a deal in that first 3 to 6 weeks. Is your approach then pull it off the market, try and get in, say, 6 months?
There would be one way of dealing with it, is pull it off the market, address the issues, and then go back to the market right away. But look, hopefully you do all the preparation. You prepare yourself properly so that doesn't happen. So number one issue why people stay on the market, by far number one issue why people stay on the market for too long, it's price. All right. So if you price it right, negotiation it's much easier. All right. And I'm not saying I price it under or below the market value, but price it right. And very often, if you price it right, you actually don't have to negotiate. One thing that people always do is say, well, leave the room to negotiate. Well, there's no need to negotiate if the price is right. Let me explain this to you through one example. Let's say I'm selling something for you for $100,000, business or anything for that matter, and you really want it. And you're going to try to negotiate and say, look, I'll give you 80. And the only thing I have to say, if the price is right, no, I want 100. And if you really want this, you will come back and you will pay $100,000. You know what? You're not going to walk away something that's priced right, something that you really want, just because I didn't give you a discount. All right? You will accept it. But the price has to be right.
Tell me in practice, how many of your sales then through Xcllusive do you think will go through without a sale price being negotiated, i.e. so the sale happens at the list price?
Very good question. Look, it is a good question. Every time you negotiate, but not necessarily just the price, terms can be negotiated as well, okay? For example, we got about 27 points of negotiation that we do for every business, which is, how long the owner is going to stay with the market, how we're going to value the stock, what the restraint of trade is going to be, and so on. And normally the price agreement is done first and very quickly. So it's not uncommon that we're going to agree on the price very, very quickly and then spend 3 to 6 months negotiating all the other terms. Now, your question of how many of them, well, often prices will be asking for, but the terms are negotiated a little bit on the other end. So when you price the business, it's not just main component is the price, but there's also what are you offering on top of the price, or what terms or what training, how the stock's going to be negotiated. And I think it's not just us, but every broker that actually encounters out there, that not all the facts are given to us in advance. So we price the business under the limited information, and then once when you go on the market and due diligence starts, certain facts of the business are discovered that very often you have to negotiate it no other way but giving the discounts. So that's another thing when we're talking about like the strategy. Disclose all the issues, disclose all the facts of the business at the beginning, because something that's $1,000 problem at the $1,000 problem at the beginning of the deal, it becomes a $50,000 on the end.
Yeah, and I've certainly seen that many times. I completely agree.
So in my opinion, unless everything is disclosed, we should not get into due diligence. And one thing that we never do, if everything is run properly, we never negotiate after due diligence. Due diligence is not there for the buyer to find other reasons to actually drop the price or get better terms. But the due diligence is there to actually prove to the buyer that everything a seller told them until that day it's true and correct.
Yeah, yeah. Sure. And that's why, I guess as advisors in this space, all of us are singing from the same hymn book, which is get your ship in order before you get it on the market, or be honest in your disclosures, because otherwise you'll get hit after DD with requests to drop the price, or you'll even lose your buyers.
Yeah. Absolutely. See how I didn't answer the question, how many we actually negotiate on the price? Look, every deal is negotiated, but not always the price is negotiated.
Yeah. I thought I'd let you out of that one, Zoran, but I love that you bring it up. Well, look, are there any other tips that you have? Obviously, we can hear loud and clear that your advice is that, for the sellers themselves, that they have to get realistic in the beginning. Otherwise, they're potentially opening themselves up for a long, painful process as they slowly drop their price down to where the market is. And I guess also for brokers and advisors out there, it's about the warning against being pressured by your clients into hitting the market with your client's determined price rather than a fair market reflected price.
Well, yes, don't be pressured by the client, but also don't use the fact that the client wants money as the opportunity to engage him, because it's going to come to bite you later. And I really believe, look, let's face it, a lot of that happens in the market. Whose fault is it? Is the client fault or the broker fault? It doesn't really matter, but it should not happen, because it's not a good thing for the broker or for the seller.
I guess, if you come from the position of playing a straight game in terms of giving realistic advice about the value at market, and you find other brokers aren't, other brokers are, more reflecting what the client's wishes for value are rather than the reality of the market. I guess that must mean that you lose business to that at times, but does that business ever come back?
We lose a lot of deals that way, and that's okay with me, with us. And a lot of them do come back. Very often they don't come back because they're a little bit embarrassed too, because they don't want to come back and say, you were right, I was wrong. So they actually go and look somebody, a third person. But like whole process actually ends up costing them money with engagement. And once when you're selling a business, it's very hard to be focused on running a business. So the business doesn't perform as well. And because it stays in the market for so long, even when we get a business after somebody else and we call them up and say, we call a strategic buyer and say, we've got to buy a business for you. He said, yeah, I know about it. It's been on the market for a year and a half. Thanks, but no thanks. Don't even want to look at it. And there was nothing wrong with that business except that it was overpriced originally. All right. So yes, you do get them back, but I'd rather not get them back. I'd rather that every broker really, really values them properly and sells them. And it's better for whole industry, and it's much better for the clients that we serve.
Well, Zoran, this has been a really useful discussion, I think, for all of our listening audience out there. If any of our audience are accountants who want to engage with you to talk to their clients about, true valuations of their clients' businesses, or indeed, any business owners who are looking to sell there, how do they get in contact with you?
Look, just Google Xclusive Business Sales and you're going to find us, or Google Zoran, the business broker, and I'll pop up there somewhere.
Zoran, the business broker. I love it.
Look, any accountant out there, if he ever has any question about the valuation, even if they're doing the valuation, they need some comparable sales, need a bit of advice on particular industry, more than welcome to call us, free of charge. We'll have a bit of a chat with, colleagues. And same with anybody who's thinking of selling a business anytime in the future. They just want to know a bit about the process. By no means calls us, and somebody from the team will have a really good conversation and try to answer as many questions as they have. Because better sellers are educated before they go on the process. And look, I'm not saying go there and read the books and do the courses, but get information. Talk to as many people as you can. Better they can control the process, and more they can help through the process, because selling the owner of the business is a big part of selling the business. So you can't really separate them. So better they know what they're doing and what to expect, better results going to be for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, that's a fabulous note to finish it on. Zoran, we're going to have you back for another episode to talk about the Australian Institute of Business Brokers. But for now, thank you so much for joining us today, and look forward to having you back again.
Awesome. Thanks, Jane. And I'm going to go and make some deals, make some money. All right, bye.
Bye. Well, that concludes our discussion with Zoran, all about pricing issues in selling a business. Next week, we're bringing back Zoran for another podcast episode, this time talking about the Australian Institute of Business Brokers, or AIBB, as they are known in the industry. And we'll just talk all about what AIBB is, what they do, and why you should perhaps consider being one of their members or partners if you're not already. If you're interested to learn more about business valuation or maybe discuss some pricing issues you are currently facing, you can reach out to Zoran and his team at Xcllusive Business Sales by checking out our show notes at www.thedealroompodcast.com, where we'll link through to their website. There, you'll also find a full transcript of this podcast episode if you'd like to read it in more detail. Well, look, I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. If you did, please subscribe to the Deal Room podcast on Apple Podcasts or your other favourite podcast player to get notifications straight to your phones whenever a new episode is out. Well, thanks again for listening in. This has been Joanna Oakey and the Deal Room podcast, a podcast very proudly brought to you by our commercial legal practice, Aspect Legal. See you next time. Aspect Legal has a number of great services that help businesses prepare for a sale or acquisition, to help them prepare in advance and to get transaction ready. We've also got a range of services to help guide businesses through the sale and acquisitions process. We work with clients both big and small and have different types of services depending on size and complexity. We provide a free consultation to discuss your proposed sale or acquisition. So see our show notes on how to book a time to speak with us, or head over to our website at aspectlegal.com.au.
Ladies and gentlemen.
That will conclude this evening's entertainment.
Thanks for listening to the Deal Room podcast. To find out more about this episode and other episodes in the series, check out the show notes or head over to our website at thedealroompodcast.com.au.